All right, guys, Jack Spirko here. It's going to be my first impressions and first use of a new product that goes with the Weber kettle grill called the Slow and Sear. You can see they have a really nice engraving of their name in there. And this is a competitor to, and I almost don't even think it's going to be a competitor. I think it's going to curb stomp the Smokinator. Those of you that listen to me for a long time and follow my videos as well have known I've been a huge fan of the Smokinator. There's one right there. And as you can see, it's not like it hasn't been used a lot. So when I say I'm a fan of it, I'm not just saying that, I mean it. But when I compare this kind of thin, flimsy steel with no reinforcement, I'm going to drop the water can out there. You can see how that's built. And the capacity is only, you know, what it is right there, to something like this. It's 6 pounds of stainless steel, welded construction, a bottom built into it. It is the deluxe model with the bottom, which helps keep your coals from dropping quite as fast. Double the capacity of water, much bigger thermal bank, an absolute thermal wall that this water creates between this side of the grill and that side of the grill. Still the ability to sear. If I was grilling and I only needed that much space for searing, I would just leave this in. I wouldn't even take it out and have to put it away like that thing there. Fantastic looking. We'll see how it performs. And I wanted to point out, you know, if you're going to use rib racks, you're only going to fit about one rack right there. If you want to lay your ribs flatter on top of each other, you could get more ribs in, but that'll get you four short size, 4 halves. I'm sorry, 5 halves. But you could easily put a group of your ribs in the bottom, one on top of the other. We're not going to do that. I only got 2 racks to smoke today, but you could do that. I'm also going to have a drain pan down there, so I don't have everything draining down through. This is kind of the mid-grade Weber kettle with the deep ash catcher. These are 149 bucks shipped on Amazon Prime. If you're going to buy a Weber kettle, I recommend going up to this level. And I really don't see the value of going up to the premium or pro or whatever they call it, just because it has a catcher thing for your grill top or what have you. I just like this is kind of close to the original, with one big improvement being that big deep ash catcher there. So I've got some ribs. We'll be getting those ready next. We're going to get set up here, put a small amount of charcoal in the corner, get that going, and then we'll fill that in, and I'll kind of come back and we'll get all this spliced together with the YouTube editor, so you'll see it all in real time, or as though it's in advanced time with the YouTube editor, the magic of editing. All right, so let's have a real quick look at what we're going to be cooking today. Like I said, baby back ribs. These are rubbed up with my simple rub, and this is the non-spicy version because Dorothy does not appreciate spice at all. The only thing in here spice is a little bit of black pepper. In fact, I'll give you the ingredients and how to make this real quick here. This is the stuff ready to go. You can see it's nice and fine like a powder. That's because I actually grind all of this together in a coffee grinder, and that gives me a nice powdery consistency. It sticks really well to the meat. Set that little bit right there. And here's what goes in it. You could do 1 part, but I do tablespoons here to make about enough to do about 3 racks of ribs or more. 1 tablespoon of cumin, 1 tablespoon of chili powder, 1 tablespoon of onion, and I use dehydrated onion. I don't use onion powder. I make my own when it gets ground up. 1 tablespoon of garlic, same thing, dehydrated garlic, minced, not the powder, and 1 tablespoon of whole black peppercorn, and then 2 parts, or 2 tablespoons in this case, of sugar, plain old sugar, salt, and paprika. There's a nice red color to it. That'll stick nice on the meat. We'll let that sit while we get things set up. We'll just go ahead outside real quick here. I've already got the dozen coals going. And they say to do this in a chimney. I just used a charcoal starter, which I've seen people do as well, and I've even seen it on ABC Barbecue Company's website. You can see it started to go really good there. We'll wait for that to ash over. We'll fill this in. And we'll get our drip pan in, and we'll get our water filled in, we'll get our ribs on with our rib rack, and we'll get the smoke and get our temperature set up, or as far as our thermometer, and we'll see how this goes. But I think it's going to go really well. All right, so we're almost ready to get on with it. I want to give you an update before I added the charcoal so you can kind of see everything in the process. I've got my barbecue thermometer set up here, and dual probe. And we'll talk more about that when we get the grill set up. But I really recommend, if you guys are going to smoke, especially in something like this, you get one of these. And one of the big things is, with my Smokinator, I was able to make sure that the built-in thermometer was not directly over the heat. since what this wants me to do is put that way, and you're over there, it's going to be a lot closer to the heat, and I don't really want to rely on that thermometer for that reading. I do actually think those are a lot more accurate than people give them credit for. They're a good thermometer in a lot of ways, but if you put it obviously right near the actual heat instead of the indirect, it's going to be inaccurate. It's a dual probe thermometer. These things, of course, cheap throwaway aluminum pans. Really recommend you put one of those underneath anything you're smoking when you're smoking on your top rack. All your drippings go in there, or most of your drippings go in there, and you don't end up with a bunch of gunk down in your ash catcher for cleanup. So the only thing I'm going to do before I get the charcoal in right now, I'm going to go ahead and add water to the Slow and Sear. See, it's boiling off quite a bit on that one side where that charcoal's already hot. And this is a 4-cup Pyrodex deal. You can see right there, four cups. And so it holds 4 cups of water. That's an awful lot of water. I'll get it all set up, ready to cook, and I'll be back with you before we get the meat on. All right, guys, so we're all set up to cook now. You can see I've got the Slow and Sear full of charcoal. I've got 5 chunks of hickory on it. It's already starting to smoke really nice, smoke enough to get me in the eyes. I've got my barbecue thermometer, meat side plugged into the meat. This side, if you notice, I'm taking the air temperature. I don't have it actually in contact with directly to the metal. Using that little clip there, that's the way I like to do this. And what the instructions that came with it say to do is to have your vents wide open and to then put your lid wide open, turn it this way, and monitor your temperature up to 175 degrees. And like I said, you'll see this rise a lot faster than the actual temperature over here where the meat is, because it's up at the top and you have the heat convecting across. That's why you really want to use something like this. So you can see that meat is still quite cool, 55 degrees. I didn't let it actually come up to room temperature, which I normally like to do, but I wanted to get this started today. That's not making it any better. And the inside temperature is already up to 115. Now what it says to do, when we get up to about 150 to 175, close these halfway and close our underside vents to just a crack. And then that should slowly bring us up to 225, and we should maintain that temperature pretty easily, but to monitor it and figure out what works best for your grill. So when we get up to temperature, I'll come back and let you know how that all worked out. All right, so you can see the temperature's up to 161 degrees. I said to bring it up to about 175, and I figure by the time I get done farting around with this little part of the video, it'll be about there when I get all the vents closed and all. So what I really wanted to show you here is we're reading 162 on the grate in the cooking zone, and that's probably about damn accurate. This is a good thermometer. Now you can see right there, we're reading what, 260? So we'd actually be over our goal of 225. And 250 is fine to smoke at and roast at. It really is. There's nothing wrong with that. So I wouldn't be real worried, but I'd be trying to drive it down if it got much higher. And you can see our actual temperature now, 165. So I'll get the vent set, and I'll do an update with you. I'll get like 15 minutes to see if it stabilizes at 2 1/4, or see how long it takes. It did not take long at all to get up here. I thought this might be a pain in the butt, kind of waiting for that little bit of charcoal to get us up into that range. But it came up in less than 10 minutes, 168. I better get on it. I'll be back with you in a bit. All right, guys, so that didn't take very long to get up. In fact, right now it looks like it's reading a little high, 244 degrees. I'm not worried about that, though, and I'll kind of explain why to you. It actually was up to 252. When it got to 252, I closed off the bottom vent a little bit more than I originally had planned. And so it was really like a wafer thin crack, you know, like you could barely be a crack. And then I kind of took that down to maybe 3/4 and then came back to a crack in that. And as you can see, the temperature is dropping now. At 250, I'll make ribs, I'll do brisket, I'll do anything at 250 degrees with no real worries. The other thing is, a lot of times when you're using these indirect heat cooking methods, your temperature curve will come up and then come down in levels. So as long as you're not looking at 270, something like that, don't worry, just make sure it doesn't get away from you. The other thing to do is, don't be lifting the lid up. Don't be jacking around with it. Start flowing bunches of air in there and spiking the temperature even more. Sure, it'll drop when you take the lid off, but it's going to go right back up when you give it all that air. Let me show you something all you Rebel kettle owners should do right now. You see that little black Sharpie mark right there next to my lever, okay, that's just barely open is what that is. If I go where it's directly over that black mark, it's perfectly closed. And that other black mark right there, that would be completely open. So I don't need to open my grill to know where exactly I need to be to have my vent in control. And I think this is going to be a really great cook. Nice moist heat coming out of there. And as you can see, that temperature just continues to drop. I'll keep an eye on it. If it gets down below 2¼ I'll give a little more air, but I think it's going to stabilize right in around 225 to 235. And let me tell you something. People that are out there really getting fussy and want it to be exactly 225 all the time, don't do that crap. This is not an electric device. This is charcoal. Things are going to change things. The ambient alone is like 103 degrees right now, and that's sitting out there in the sun. That alone is going to throw a degree or two of additional climb on it here and there as time passes. If you keep your temperature between about 225 and 255 degrees, and you spend more time toward the 225 range than the 250 range, your food's going to come out great. Now let's talk about what we're looking for here. You see that temperature on the meat, 145 already? I'm going to get that meat up to about 160 to 165 degrees. When that happens, that meat's coming off of that grill. It's getting wrapped in foil because that meat's not going to take any more smoke past that point anyway, except on the outside of it. And it's going to get, you know, just not going to be as good. And it's going to go what's called the stall. By wrapping that meat in aluminum foil at that point, we'll stop the evaporative cooling process. That's what causes a stall. The meat's shedding moisture so fast that it's having trouble getting up to those higher temperatures. So we'll do that. We'll take one packet and we'll very carefully develop a place where we can insert that meat thermometer. Look, it's just dropping nice down 240. That way we'll cook that meat up to about 190 to 195 degrees. We'll take as long as possible to get there, you know, under the circumstances. And at that point, we'll be ready to eat. I'll catch up with you later. All right, this doesn't look like anything to do with the grill, but I'm actually showing you this to make a point. We're sitting at about 162 degrees right now in the meat temperature, and 244 degrees is our cook temperature. I'm fine with that. And because I'm sitting, you know, here with it, with my little remote, I'm sitting in my pool and I can see the temperature. No problem. I have my iced mint tea. Dogs are hanging out with me. And I know I said I was going to wrap that at 160, but it got to 160 a little faster than I expected. Probably because I'm cooking just a little bit hotter than normal, you know, 244 instead of 225. Nothing wrong with that though at all. And that's just probably my learning curve with the new device. Right, Max? We're making ribs for you, buddy. And I usually like to cook my ribs about 2 hours before I foil wrap them. Right now we're about 15 minutes away from that. So I'm just going to go ahead and run out the full 2 hours, or 165. If I see this hit 165 while I'm kicked back here, I'll go ahead and do my foil wrap then. There's the wife floating in the pool. And making ribs for you too, honey, not just Max. And we'll keep an eye on the temps. We'll get them wrapped up and get you another video added into this series in just a second. All right, guys, so cook's been going for 2 hours now. Right when I like to pull my ribs and get them into foil. You can see there's just tons of charcoal in there. I think by the end of this cook, I'm going to wish I had more meat to throw on there. Hickory's just slowly moving over like a worm, you know, moving across. Ribs look beautiful. Beautiful bark on them. Just great. You can tell there's a good smoke just by the residue on the probe there and on the rack. So I need to get these pulled. I don't want to jerk around too much. I've been cooking. Cook temperature's been bouncing between about 240 and 250, a little bit high. And that's probably because I've got this open a lot more than I would if I wasn't videoing this. So I'm going to close this real quick to until I get out here without the camera in my hand. And of course the cook temperature dropped when I did that, but I want you to see there, meat went up 1 degree in 20 minutes. So we've definitely hit a stall, is what they call it. And it's time to get that meat wrapped. And that 188, 187, of course that temperature's gonna come right back up now that the lid's back on. So let me get it wrapped up and give you a look at that, and we'll roll for about 2 more hours probably, trying to get at that 190, 195 range with the meat. All right, so I got everything on there. I'll show you in a second. Kind of want to show you the meat temperature. Looks like it's down, but that's probably inaccurate because it's just got plugged back in. Cook temperature 211, that's because it was just open. I did have a little bit of a heat spike after I did this because I had it open for so long. And I wouldn't be doing this right now if I wasn't shooting a video. But I want to show you, I got the probe thermometer into the meat, through the foil, deep into the meat, in between the ribs is the way I like to go. And I did, because this did get up with all the opening I did, hit that with a little bit of water just to settle it down. And we'll just monitor it now and see where it goes from here. But I expect about 2 hours. And we'll power through the stall now because we've got that meat wrapped. And we'll just keep an eye on it. I'm gonna pour myself another iced tea, move the water for the garden, and sit there on the deck with my wife and enjoy the rest of the Saturday. I'll catch up with you later when it's ready to come off. All right, guys, so it's been about 10 minutes since I closed it back down. And I did hit it with a little bit more water to kind of bring it back into the groove of things. But now you can see I'm holding 226. Meat temperature's up to 170, climbing nicely. Degree here and a degree there, exactly like you'd expect. Again, I think this will be about 2 hours. Just want to kind of point out that any piece of equipment has a learning curve. I did see some reviews of this thing on Amazon with people seeming to think that you're going to set a temperature like you do with a freaking oven with a thermostat on it. That is not how barbecue works. Barbecue is an art, and every piece of equipment you get is going to have a learning curve. So I got a bit of a temperature spike when I opened that lid, and one of the ribs just didn't. If you've ever done this, you know, every once in a while you get a rack that just don't want to come out of the freaking rib rack. And I got flames going, and it took a while to calm it back down. But as you can see, we got a nice, steady 226. And that is beautiful, and I think we're going to have a wonderful finish to this. Stay tuned, and we'll show you the final product. Man, we are right at about 4 hours into the cook. I'm holding 231 degrees. I did have to hit it with a little bit more water. I got some temperature climb with it, but again, just learning how to use this new tool. Really impressed with it. Meat's at 200, just hit 201, so we're going to get it out of there. A lot of people cook ribs at 203 is like considered a pitmaster secret special number to slowly get your ribs to in around 4 hours. I believe there's a margin of error in all equipment, including $50 barbecue thermometer, so I think we're going to call this about done. You can see there's a lot of material left there. I think I could do a whole other batch of something. I used more charcoal than I needed. That also might be why I got a little bit higher on the temps than I wanted to, but these I can just touch and tell you they're good. I'm going to get them pulled off, and I'll show you what I do with them inside, and then there'll be one more segment where we show you what they look like. Okay, so they dropped a degree. It's probably just from me moving the probe around, getting them off. I'm going to leave the probe in there, and what I'm going to do now, because we're not going to eat anytime soon, we're a couple hours from eating, we'll take this big heavy towel, and I'll do a little bit better job of wrapping it once I have a free hand. But basically I'm going to cover these up with a towel, and I'm going to leave that there. There's no real need for that. It's already in there. Why pull it out? Why let that meat, you know, drain juices out of the hole that's in it? Why not just see, you know, what happens over a couple hours, what the temperature actually is when we open it, just for shits and grins, I guess you'd say. And this will sit for about 2 hours and rest, and we'll have some great eating tonight. That cook was almost dead on at 4 hours. I started just before noon, 4:01. For ribs, that's perfect in my opinion. Some people try to go for like a 6-hour cook on ribs. I think it's too long. It's not that big of a piece of meat. It's not like we're doing a pork shoulder here or something where we're going to go 8-10 hours. It's not like we're doing a brisket. We're going to go longer than that. I'm pretty happy. 4 hours, bringing it nice and gently right up to 199 degrees. Beautiful smoke, beautiful bark on it. I think it's going to taste great. And I got a secret I almost didn't share with you. When you do they call it the Texas crunch or the Texas cheat, people say to put a little bit of liquid in there to baste it with. Some people use beer, some people use butter, some people just use a little bit of water, some people use wine. I use this. What is that? That is Beauchamp. It's basically a very high-end French orange liqueur. It's about 70 proof, and I use maybe a quarter to a half a shot per packet with my ribs. I don't do this on everything, but pork it's beautiful on. It leaves a hint of something. Your people that are eating it just can't quite put their finger on what it is. It's not real strong. Don't worry about the alcohol. I mean, it's meaningless after it's been in there at 200 degrees for that long, wrapped in foil. It really is, and then rests like this. But it adds a really nice flavor, And I came up with this doing my top shelf margaritas and not liking to pay as much money as I had to get out of here, fly, for Grand Marnier, and found out I like this better. This is really nice, just even sipped. Kind of reminds you of like a cognac, but a little bit milder. But with cooking, it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. We'll catch up with you when it's time to pull those bad boys out and eat them. All right, guys, it's been about 2 hours since the last segment. You can see beautiful smoke ring on the ribs. As far as how tender this is, I mean, it just juicy. You can just see the juice. Just perfectly cooked. And one is still wrapped up with the thermometer. 2 hours later, 158 degrees. So we'll take about as we want to eat. No sense in letting them all get cold. And man, these are just absolutely beautiful. But I am a fan of the slow and sear, and I think you can see why. What are we going to do next weekend? I'm not sure, but something else will be on that kettle grill next weekend with the slow and sear.